So today I want to talk about Henry To'o because for those of you that have been around the channel for a while, you'll know that I was adamant that not only did I believe Henry To'o would ultimately end up at Alabama, I thought that Alabama should pursue him because he was incredibly talented. But we have heard a lot of rave reviews about To'o and his short experience with the Crimson Tide, and we need to talk about it because that linebacking core for the Crimson Tide, as I said yesterday, is probably the best in the nation. And I want to hear from y'all. Do you believe that Henry To'o will be the linebacker starting next to Christian Harris? Let me know down below. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. I would love to have you along for this journey as the season is nearing. And if you enjoy that content, be sure to like and comment down below. But with all that being said, let's jump straight into this. And first and foremost, Henry To'o, the former Tennessee linebacker, was one of the most coveted transfers in the portal of the offseason. Ohio State tried to see if they could get him and get his talent to Columbus because they desperately needed help at that linebacking position, but ultimately To'o chose the Alabama Crimson Tide. And it was a situation where I talked about at length that his father had said in an interview that they didn't want to make the same mistake again in not picking Alabama. So they kind of played their hands, or at least I felt that they played their hands early on in the process, that Alabama was the wanted destination. It was just up to the SEC for the one-time transfer rule. Once that got passed, I felt like the writing was on the wall that To'o would ultimately be a member of the Crimson Tide. And we've even heard from Nick Saban this summer that he felt like To'o was not only one of the best defensive players in the SEC, Nick Saban went on to say that he felt that To'o was one of the best players in the SEC, and that's why he felt it was such a big deal that Alabama was not only able to identify him, but then bring him in to add to this Alabama Crimson Tide defense. As I said yesterday, that Crimson Tide defense linebacking core, and yesterday I really outlined the outside linebacking core, which I believe in and of itself is the deepest outside linebacking unit in the nation, goes along with also probably the deepest inside linebacker unit in the nation. Now, when you combine them both, you have the deepest linebacker room in the nation. When you look at the outside linebacker position, loaded with 5 stars, but now that inside linebacking position has got so much speed, violence, and versatility to it that Alabama is in a really good situation. Christian Harris, we know, will be one of the starters, but opposite him, there are a few names that have a shot at this job. Whether it's Henry To'o, the individual who we're going to be focused mainly on today, Jalen Moody, or even a freshman in Deontay Lawson, who was fantastic in A-Day, the Crimson Tide's inside linebacker position is unbelievably talented. But Henry To'o has been drawing rave reviews, and we heard Will Anderson say something that I thought was very telling that I've been hinting at in my past few videos, and especially yesterday when I was talking about the one area I thought Alabama struggled in last year. Will Anderson was saying that Henry To'o is already such a great part of this defense because of his communication. He is so on it every single play and getting everybody in the right position, understanding where everybody needs to be. And Will Anderson even said if someone messes up, To'o is there to hold you accountable. That is the type of leadership that you love to hear about, especially from an individual who hasn't even been there during the springtime, who's only been there during the summer. That type of leadership is really key, and especially when we're talking about an inside linebacker, someone who's going to be the quarterback of that defense along with Christian Harris. So when we're hearing individuals on this defense talk about how he is a fantastic communicator, how he's holding people accountable, how he's already a part of the leadership groups, you're already getting the picture painted for you that this is a special individual. And it's only been echoed by the coaching staff. Pete Golding said that he felt like To'o was further ahead than any transfer he's ever been around in his short capacity to not only understand the Alabama defense, but then be able to relay the messages to those around him. That is a really good quality, and I think we can attribute that to Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt trying to implement a very stylistically similar defense to what it is Alabama runs, and so that transition was flawless. Something that we had talked about here on this channel that we felt like would be a flawless, seamless transition. But when you pair Christian Harris and Henry To'o in that same linebacking room, if that is the duo that is to be chosen, you're talking about a lot of communication, you're talking about a lot of athleticism and a lot of violence. But the one area that I have taken away from Henry To'o and why ultimately I am so excited for him isn't his supreme athleticism, isn't how great he was in his capacities as a Tennessee Volunteer. It's actually going back to something Will Anderson said, that he was a great communicator. And let me explain why, because if you go back to the video yesterday, when I kind of outlined the one area I felt like Alabama's defense really needed to improve going on to this year, it was the communication at the linebacker position. And when talking about A&M, the thing I pointed out was the Crimson Tide linebackers just had a breakdown in communication when it came to identifying running backs out the backfield, tight ends out the backfield, especially when there was any sort of pre-snap motion or anything to disguise that. So having somebody with supreme communication in Henry To'oTo'o is going to be a supreme net positive for the Crimson Tide, because that was an area where they had all the athleticism in the world last year, and of course last year when you're asking that much of inside linebackers, Dylan Moses coming back from an injury and then playing injured, and then you have that chaotic season, the Crimson Tide inside linebackers did get better throughout the year, so it is to be expected when you don't have any of those normal practices that there are going to be lapses. But the fact that we're hearing this early on that To'oTo'o is not only being a leader, but a fantastic communicator is really important at that inside linebacker position. That's only compounded when you really break down how incredibly athletic this kid is and how good he is. Remember, he was Tennessee's best defensive player, and 24/7 Sports, when they ranked the top transfers in the nation, they ranked Henry To'oTo'o as the #1 transfer. And at the end of the day, when Coach Nick Saban goes out and says that we identified this guy as not only one of the best defensive players in all of the SEC, but one of the best players in the SEC, we need to take that for what it is, because this kid is supremely talented. Alabama wanted him out of high school, and ultimately he chose Tennessee, but that didn't stop them when the opportunity came about for them to get him back on campus, and when that opportunity came, Nick Saban and the staff jumped at it. That's how talented he is. And so now we're looking at a situation where if he is to start across from Christian Harris, your linebacking core is ferociously talented, very explosive, very violent at the point of attack, and we have two linebackers who are great communicators and can use that communication to help everybody around them, and this is a unit that has a lot of talented dudes, so that communication is key. Those are the little things that separate units early, and that's something that why I am so excited for what I'm hearing about Henry To'oTo'o. Hop down below, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.